That's millions.
Oh, right. Oh, see,
Well, it's like nothing in it.
Are you ready?
Yeah. So you said when and where?
Well, the first thing I did, I had this friend named Ed Thornburg, who was a highway patrolman, and he took me out to Pebble Beach, the clubhouse. And when he pulled up to the clubhouse, he turned the siren on. And I got out of the car, and everybody was looking to see who in the hell it was. And it was just a damn old GI from Fort Ord, California. And then, you know, you just there wasn't that many people there. Byron Nelson won that, him and Phil Harris won the Pro-Am. Phil Harris, you remember, was a big, what's his name? Jack Benny's musical director, Phil Harris.
Okay.
And he was a golfer?
So I sat there and talked to Bing Crosby just like I'm sitting there talking to you on the park bench by the 18th hole. And then I got up and walked around to number 17, and here was Bob Hope and Nicky Hilton teeing off.
My gosh.
And I walked down side by side to Bob Hope. He didn't say much, but he was funny anyway. He didn't have to say much. And Nicky Hilton was married to Elizabeth Taylor at one time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd forgotten.
And he was the son of the old man Hilton that had all the
Hilton hotels and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. And I've still got that program. I don't know. I'm not.
When was that?
I ever show it to you for that golf tournament?
When was it?
1951.
Really?
It was the third annual Bing Crosby tournament. Now it's an AT&T tournament. And the total purse was $10,000. The total purse, the whole thing was $10,000. That's all it was.
Well, who won?
And Phil Harris and Byron Nelson won it.
Byron Nelson.
Byron Nelson.
Yep.
And Phil Harris,
I can't remember.
they
who
had
he
two
was.
guys with bodyguards for Phil Harris, and they wouldn't let him drink. He get too drunk, he couldn't play golf. So Byron Nelson had these two bodyguards and kept him sober. And he was Jack Benny's musical director. Of course, do you remember Jack Benny at all?
Well, yeah, of course I
In
do.
Rochester.
Yeah.
So that's about all I can remember. And then this Ed Thornburg, that was a highway patrolman, in 1964, Lydia and me and Steve and Susie was 4 years old, and Steve was 4 years older, so he was 8. Went out there to Disneyland, and then we went up to Carmel, and I told Lydia, once you see Carmel, you won't want to go to San Francisco. It's too much fun. Those shops in Carmel, it's a square mile, and there's all these shops and clothing stores, but they're just little, and they've got the English people waiting on you, and it's pretty cool. That 17-mile drive. Have you ever been down there? Okay, we went out there in '64, and guess who was chief of police of 17-mile drive? Ed Thornburg. And we went up. They've got a guardhouse, you know, at each end. It's 17 miles around Monterey Peninsula. And I went up to the guardhouse, and the guy tells me, like, you know, $10 or whatever it was to get in there. And I said, oh, where's the chief of police of 17-mile drive? And he said, he's over at the other gate. And I said, get him on the phone. And so he came over, and he entertained us the whole time we were there. He and his wife. But he's dead. He died. But it took us to the Elks Club in Monterey for dinner, and they had 2 bands in there. They had a band in the bar and a band in the dining room. It was the most ultra Elks Club I ever saw. Had a swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, real fancy showings. And I've always tried to find out if his wife's still alive. You know, I like to call her up and talk to her sometime. Just for the heck of it. Because her best friend is the girl that I dated. Ruth, her name was Ruth Gerling, Goerling. And I dated her, and she was a great gal. She worked for the telephone company, and she was a maitre d' at Cadamatore's restaurant, which was an Italian restaurant out on the highway. And she was, you know, sent you to your tables and stuff, did that. Besides being, she was a hell of a gal. I met her, we went to the Soldiers Club one night, and they had dances over there. Well, they had these good-looking girls, and you go dance with them, you get about 2 steps, somebody cut in on you. So I said, I ain't gonna do this no more, I'm gonna get me an average-looking girl. So I could dance without. So I walked over to this gal, big old tall redhead, and as I walked up to her, she had on a wedding ring, but I was already committed, so I went over and asked her to dance, and then I didn't get cut in on. She was nice looking, but she just wasn't a beauty. But and later on, I asked her, I said, "Are you married?" And she said, "No, I just wear that ring in case if I don't like a guy, I just tell him I'm married." She just had that ring on. And I went with her. Well, let's see, I got there in September of '46, and I left there in April of '47. So I was there about, 5 or 6, 7 months. I went with her every time I go on leave. I'd go in town and get Ruthie, and we'd go picture show, go to the bars, or do something, you know. And when I left, I got discharged, so I didn't tell her goodbye or anything.
Aww.
I just didn't show up that night. I was going away to San Francisco and back to Sedalia.
So you don't know what happened to her?
About that, because she was pretty good to me. And then I went back there again to talk about deja vu. That was in 1947. I left there, and I thought, bye, Fort Ord, I'll never see you again, right?
Yeah, and I know what happened.
Okay, and then 1950, December 1950, here I come pulling back into Fort Ord again. Never say never, right?
Right.
So then I was there, that was December 1950. And then February of '51, that's when I went out to the Bing Crosby tournament. And then February the 15th, 1951, I got on the General E.T. Collins troop ship in San Francisco, heading for Korea. That was the day I got on that troop ship. And they put me on a kitchen KP, like, you know, on the boat. Every other day you were supposed to go to the kitchen and work. Well, it didn't suit me at all. So you checked the bulletin boards, and they were looking for a cartoonist. So I went and applied for that job, and I had to do a cartoon. We were going to be on 14 days. We were going to be on the ship for 14 days, going from San Francisco to Yokohama. So they had to do a cartoon for each day.
Oh my gosh.
14 cartoons I had to do. Well, I I said, can you get me off that kitchen detail? And he said, yeah, I'll get you off of it. So I got rid of that damn kitchen detail. And then I had a Sad Sack. You remember Sad Sack?
Well, I just
had a
remember.
Sad Sack cartoon book.
Uh-huh.
So I picked out some cartoons and I just made them like Sad Sack and another guy were standing on the edge of the ship and they said, Japanese fishing boat. And there was a box, I drew a box that said lettuce on it, you know, junk. And that they said that was a Japanese fishing boat, but it wasn't a Japanese fishing boat. It was, anyway, it took me about 2 or 3 days to do those cartoons. And I would sit up there and watch for this officer to come up there, and then I'd be working, and then as soon as he'd leave, I'd leave. So, and you had to cut a mimeograph. You remember mimeographs?
Yeah, I do, but I don't.
Where you made copies.
Yeah.
And I had to I'd draw those cartoons and then put them on a mimeograph thing, and I had them hidden back there, and he didn't know. He'd always ask me how I'm doing, and I'd say, oh, I got a couple of them done. I had them all done. But I just kept faking it, see, that way. Then I'd go play poker or something, you know, or shoot crabs.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't eat hardly anything. But if you didn't eat anything, you didn't get seasick. And I could lay down and close my eyes on and if I started feeling dizzy, you know, boy, you're on those troop ships and they go up or down, and they put you up in the front of it. The officers are all here in the middle, see, like a teeter-totter, and they're in the middle, and all the enlisted men, and everybody, half the guys on there were throwing up, you know, getting seasick. But I didn't eat anything, and if I felt, I remember one time I laid down right on the damn floor and closed my eyes because I was getting feeling sick. Oh, I'd eat oranges and eat a little bit, but not much.
Huh.
But when I got off that ship, they had that book. They gave one to each guy, and I had all those cartoons in it. Then it was just a kind of a boat about the trip, typewritten stuff, but those 14 cartoons were in there. And I got one at home somewhere, but somewhere, I don't know where in the hell it is.
I know, you told me about that before.
Yeah. And so then